The Blue Jackets dominated the Devils in the third period. And on St. Patrick's Day, the Devils needed some luck. And they got one in Jake Allen. Jake the snake bit the Blue Jackets, stymieing them and securing the 2 points for the Devils. All wins count the same, and that's the silver lining. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Chalky Play Announcer, Del's Wire Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member Trey Matthews. The New Jersey Devils defeated the Columbus Blue Jackets by a score of 2-1. It wasn't the prettiest of showings, but all wins count the same. In the first segment, I will share my main takeaways from the game. Then in the second segment, we will hear from head coach Sheldon Keefe, and I will also name some players that caught my eye, including listing my personal 3 stars of the game. And then in the third and final segment, like I do with every post-game recap episode, I will compare the stats and give the Devils a letter grade. Okay. The overall showing from the Devils in this game against the Blue Jackets, not really all that good, but I really don't care. They walked away with 2 points, which was important. Why was it important? Well, in the previous episode, I talked about how the wild card is completely chaotic, and I don't want the Devils a part of that. I want the Devils to remain one of the top 3 teams in the Metro. So while we're on this subject, let's look at the standings, shall we? The Devils now have 80 points, and they are 8 points ahead of the Rangers and 10 points ahead of the Blue Jackets. So they're starting to build that points cushion just a little bit. And just for fun, let's look at the wild card standings while we're at it. It's a race to the finish line. Who's going to occupy those top 2 wild card positions? Well, with how red hot the Ottawa Senators have been, I think they are inching closer to locking themselves for a wild card position. They currently occupy the first slot. They have 77 points. They're currently on a 6-game winning streak. The Rangers, where did they come from? People were talking about how the Rangers season is over, and here they are. They're in a wild card position. They occupy the second spot. They have 72 points, but they cannot get comfortable. Right below them are the Canadiens with 71 points, the Red Wings with 70 points, the Blue Jackets with 70 points, and the Bruins have 69 points. It's just amazing the amount of parity you might see in the NHL. So the Devils winning against the Blue Jackets, that was important. And let me just make this perfectly clear. I am rooting for the Blue Jackets. I've said it time and time again. I want to see them in the playoffs. I think it is a great feel-good story in sports. I think with everything their organization has been through, there's no team that's more deserving of a playoff position than the Blue Jackets. And they've surprised me this season. And I think they've surprised a lot of other people. So while I am happy that the Devils beat the Blue Jackets, let me make this perfectly clear. I am rooting for the Blue Jackets. I am in their corner, and I think a lot of other people are also in their corner. So this was definitely a big win for the Devils, and the Blue Jackets, they played like a desperate team, especially in the third period. Coming into this matchup against the Devils, they were riding a 3-game losing streak, including being shut out in back-to-back games against the Golden Knights and Rangers. And Bill Spaulding, Ken Danico, they addressed it on air. you could just feel the urgency once the third period rolled around, because it seemed like the Blue Jackets were playing a lot more angry and they were desperate trying to get a goal to get some momentum on their side, because their playoff odds are getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And they're doing whatever it takes to try to keep themselves afloat, especially with how chaotic the wild card has been. I'll play devil's advocate here. I think the Devils played a good first two periods of hockey. In the first period, they only generated 5 shots on Jet Graves. However, they had 18 shot attempts. And then in the second period, Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt scored. So all the Devils needed to do was just try to limp their way to the finish line. And this goes back to what Sheldon Keefe said a good while ago, which is, can the Devils win a tight-knit affair more often? Because you're not always going to beat your opponent 5-1. You need to be able to win these types of games where the other team is putting their foot on the gas pedal and they're right in your rear view mirror. Can you do whatever it takes to keep them at bay, especially when the playoffs come rolling around? So I was very proud of the Devils, because they don't usually win these types of games where the game is close and it seems like the other team is recapturing the momentum. It's one of the reasons why they haven't been that much of a consistent team. But in this outing, yes, wasn't their best of showings. I'm sure the players know that they could have played a lot better, but I'm just happy that they got the 2 points. And I got to give a ton of credit to Jake Allen, because he made a lot of crucial saves to keep his team in it and to make sure that the Devils walked away with the win. And we're going to talk more about Jake Allen in the next segment, so stick around for that. And to be fair, it's not just Jake Allen elevating his game. The Devils are getting a lot of production from a lot of other players, including Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier, who we will also talk about in the second segment. The Devils are missing a few key assets in Jack Hughes, Jonas Siegenthaler, and Dougie Hamilton. So all hands are needed on deck. And this is what the Devils have been doing in their last few outings. They have now won 4 of their last 5 games. And I said that they might just have to limp across the finish line, but they are starting to build a points cushion, like I just said. And this is what I like to see. Try to give yourself more breathing room. And then once the playoffs come around, we'll see what happens. All right. We're going to talk about some players that caught my eye and also hear from head coach Sheldon Keefe. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with the top talent and grow your business today. Okay, let's listen into head coach Sheldon Keefe. Here's what he had to say about his team's overall effort against the Blue Jackets. The Cannons were silent for the most part because the Devils did sacrifice 1 goal to Olivier, but that's beside the point. Let's listen into head coach Sheldon Keefe. Take a listen.
Just a gutsy effort. I just love to hear your thought process on this game. First 2 periods, you guys really stuck to your process, and then a desperate team really put it on. What can you say about the way you guys managed to get the 2 points in a game like this?
Yeah, you described it as gutsy. I think that's accurate. You know, it's really ugly. But guys have to compete. Guys are working hard. They're tired. They're giving everything they have. As you mentioned, a desperate opponent coming at us. So they're real aggressive, lots of pressure. Hard to make any real tape-to-tape passes in that environment. So you're under siege. But goaltending was terrific from Jake Allen, and I thought the guys, despite giving one up, that's sort of the bend don't break type mentality, and I thought earned the 2 points off of that mentality, but probably more importantly, just our play through 2 periods. I thought we controlled things pretty good. Not that we controlled the play necessarily, but we didn't give up very much. We were patient. We got ourselves the lead, and did what we had to do to get the 2 points.
Jake Allen, by and large, was the star player for the Devils. So I think everyone knows who my first star is going to be. But before we get into my stars of the game, first, a few honorable mentions. Shout out to the new guys. Brian Dumoulin, as a member of the Devils, he has already played in 2 games against the Blue Jackets. And in both of those matchups, he has racked up 2 assists. In this game, he got the primary assist on Jesper Bratt's goal in the second period. And speaking of decent point production in a short amount of time, Cody Glass continues to find his name in the score sheet. He now has 5 points in his last 5 games. He got the secondary assist on Jesper Bratt's goal. I love the work that line was putting in. I know a lot of people might look at it funny because Jesper Bratt was playing on the third line. His line mates were Cody Glass and also Eric Haula, but you need to spread out the scoring a little bit. And I said it a couple years ago, but where you're at in the lineup, so if you're on the third line or the fourth line, that does not indicate ice time. And I learned that from Amanda Stein because she shared that on her social media page as well. But digressing a little bit, at least early on in the game, I just love the production that Jesper Bratt and Cody Glass were putting in, paired alongside one another. Eric Haula is, Eric Haula. He's not really having a good year, and I know people are going to find ways to complain about him, but just focusing on the positives of the matter, I felt as though that line was putting in some good work, at least to start off the game, and you see that both Jesper Bratt and Cody Glass were in the score sheet. And now let's get on to my personal 3 stars of the game. The third star goes to Jesper Bratt, who scored in the second period. He picked up his 20th goal of the season and also his 80th point. He is still tied with Scott Stevens for the single season assists record, but he is going to break it at some point. He just didn't break it in this particular game. Instead of dishing out helpers, Jesper Bratt was helping himself out by scoring. So I'm not really going to complain about that. It's going to come. But Jesper Bratt continues to make history, and he continues to pick up the slack ever since Jack Hughes went down with his injury. You don't believe me? Bratt now has 12 points, 3 goals, and 9 assists during the month of March. Keep in mind, Jack Hughes went down on February 26th, which was the final game that the Devils played in that month. Jesper Bratt has really elevated his point production, and now the spotlight is on him to be the main scoring option for the Devils, or one of them, but he's going to rack up the points. And I know Jack Hughes is the superstar for the Devils, but let's not underestimate Jesper Bratt and what he's capable of. So I'm glad that he's sort of carrying the load offensively for the Devils and continues to put up points. He's been having a good showing during the month of March. Speaking of players who have a good showing during the month of March, my second star goes to Timo Meier. A little birdie told me that Timo Meier elevates his game come March, and we saw it last year. We saw it the year before that. Timo Meier now has 5 goals in 8 games played this month. I don't know what it is about March and Timo Meier. I don't know if that's just pure coincidence or whatever the case might be, but similar circumstances to last year, which is the Devils dealing with some injuries. So that kind of forces Meier into a bigger role. He can play at a more comfortable position, especially playing on the top power play unit. But getting off subject here, Timo Meier, similar to Jesper Bratt, has elevated his game. And this is the Timo Meier that people want to see. So this ain't college basketball March Madness. No, March belongs to Timo Meier. So let's call it Meier March Madness. And Timo Meier would be my first star because he scored the opening goal in the second period. He was chugging down the lane, being the great power forward he is, game-winning goal. But I got to give it to Jake Allen because that third period, the Blue Jackets gave the Devils hell right from the opening faceoff. They were generating a lot more shots, and we already saw Olivier score in the third period. So there was a big fear that the Blue Jackets would start to find the back of the net more consistently because it was scary. It definitely was. But it was Jake the Snake keeping the Blue Jackets at bay. And you know the term snake bitten. Well, the Blue Jackets were snake bitten from Jake the Snake. You don't believe me? Well, courtesy of Alex Chavancy, who is the host of New Jersey Devils on the Rush podcast. Let's look at the deserve to win-o-meter. 83.9% in favor of the Blue Jackets. The odds were 58-42 in favor of the Devils before the third period. That is a good indication as to how dominant the Blue Jackets were in the third period and how much they put the Devils on the tip of their toes. Jake Allen saved 3.77 goals above expected for the game. In the third alone, he saved 2.62 goals above expected. Blue Jackets had 12 high-danger chances just in the third period. Madness. It's March Madness. And we should be talking about Timo Meier being the first star, but no, I got to give it to Jake Allen. It sucks that he didn't walk away with a shutout, but I don't care. The Devils got the 2 points, and Jake Allen really needed that because I think the narrative that's been surrounding Jake Allen for the last month or so is that people felt as though he didn't really step up his game when Jacob Markstrom went down with an injury. We talked a lot about Nico Dawes, but we only talked about some of the bad for Jake Allen, and I've been saying Jake Allen is a good goalie. And he gave the Devils 2 big points. Steak dinner for Jake Allen. He is my first star of the game. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. Round of applause to Jake Allen. Just phenomenal. I'm running out of adjectives to describe it. Okay, we're going to compare the stats, give the Devils a letter grade momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Game Time. There's nothing like watching basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. I just checked the Game Time app, and there was an amazing deal on some huge matchups coming up, including the Los Angeles Lakers. They're making their way around the country, and I'm sure a lot of you want to see LeBron James and Luka Doncic team up with one another. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, everybody. Okay, let's compare the stats, give the Devils a letter grade, and get out of here. Shots on goal differential, 46-20 in favor of the Blue Jackets. Oh my goodness. If you're curious, in the third period, the shots on goal differential, 24-3 in favor of the Blue Jackets. And yet the Devils won 2-1. Yeah, Bill Spaulding, Ken Danico, and Bryce Salvador, they were absolutely right. the Blue Jackets were probably seeing red. And no, they weren't just looking at the Devils uniforms. They were ticked off that they could not fool Jake Allen a couple more times. Because if I'm being completely honest, you guys know I'm going to be honest about the Devils. That third period, the Devils had no business of winning this game, but they still found a way to do so. I'm not going to complain. They need to win these types of games, especially with the season winding down. Points are so important. But I just got to give a lot of credit to the Blue Jackets. They were hounding the Devils. But let me just also say this. The Devils played a good first two periods. Like I said in the first segment, they only generated 5 shots in period number 1, but they created 18 shot attempts. They were just missing the net and they weren't really finishing. That's been the story all year long. And the second period, Devils played a lot better, jumped out to a 2-0 lead, and 2 goals was all they needed to win. And then, yeah, they sacrificed a goal to Olivier, but no harm, no foul. The Blue Jackets, that was bound to happen with just how dominant they were in the third period. All right, moving on. Power plays. Devils were 0 for 1. Blue Jackets were 0 for 1. The referees let the players play, and that made the game go by a little quicker, at least from my perspective. I like it when the referees just allow the players to play, honestly. Hits 25-15 in favor of the Blue Jackets. Giveaways 19-16 in favor of the Devils. Takeaways 6-3 in favor of the Blue Jackets. Block shots 22-14 in favor of the Devils. Time spent in the penalty box, 2 apiece. Okay, if I had to give the Devils a letter grade, I'm a little mixed about it. Yes, they came away with the win, but it was an ugly victory. They did not dominate the game, especially in the third period. They played well in the first 2 periods, but not to the best of their ability. Let's be completely honest. I don't want to take off a few points just because I feel like that's unfair to Jake Allen, and I really want him to be the main focus of today's episode. If I had to give the Devils a letter grade, I will give them a B- because they put way too much pressure on Jake Allen, and that third period was awful. I think that's safe for me to say. And I'm sure the Devils were happy to see triple zeros hit the board. So that's why I'm going to give the Devils a B-, but Jake Allen, he gets an A+++. He over-aced my exam. He did really well. But let me know your thoughts. Season is winding down. How you feeling about the Devils? They've won 4 of their last 5 games. They're missing a lot of key assets, but they're still finding ways to generate points. Speaking of which, Cody Glass continues to find points somehow, some way. He's actually been a big surprise. Jake Allen, good in between the pipes. Devils getting 2 big points against the Blue Jackets. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TrainMat4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.